In June of 2026, one man's paper fortune fell by nearly $700 billion. Not over years, over weeks. Then he sat down across from the editor of The Economist and said money would not matter by the year 2036. The recording exists. It was published as part of the outlet's Insider series, filmed at his own factory in Texas. Most people watched the headline and scrolled past. They missed the part that was already written. Because this exact prediction has a paper trail, and it does not lead to abundance. It leads to 1932. If that interests you, subscribe, because this channel covers what most people slept through. Part 1. The Promise. Start with what money actually is. Money is a claim on things. Food, shelter, a ride somewhere, an hour of someone else's time. You do not want the paper. You want what the paper buys. Elon Musk built his argument on exactly that point. On record, he asked the interviewer a simple question. What do you want money for? You want it for food, housing, transport, entertainment. Then he made the leap. If robots and artificial intelligence produce more of those things than any human could ever use, then the claim becomes worthless. Not because you are poor, because everything is free. He called it a coming age of incredible abundance. A world where anyone can have almost anything they think of. He put a date on it. 10 years. By 2036, in his words, money would not matter. Understand the moment this was said. Musk had become, briefly, the first person on record worth $1 trillion after his rocket company went public that same month. And within weeks, a drop in his stock had erased close to 700 billion of it. The richest man alive was explaining that wealth was about to become meaningless, while the market was busy reminding him it still meant a great deal. The interviewer noticed. She told him plainly that the people who bought his shares did not seem to think money would stop mattering in 2036. That gap between the vision and the ticker is where this story lives. Part 2. The Paper Trail. Here is what almost no one reported. The idea is not new. It is not even close to new. In 1930, the economist John Maynard Keynes wrote a short essay called Economic Possibilities for Our Grandchildren. He looked 100 years ahead to roughly now. He predicted that machines and rising output would lift the standard of living in rich countries 4 to 8 times higher. He was right about that. Then he predicted the consequence. With needs so easily met, people would work about 15 hours a week and struggle mainly to fill their free time. That is the same argument. Abundance makes the old economic problem disappear. Keynes put it in print. The date he aimed at was 2030. Then it got more concrete. In 1932, an engineer named Howard Scott and a colleague founded a group called Technocracy Incorporated. Their proposal was blunt. Abolish money entirely. Replace it with what they called energy certificates, units of value based not on gold or dollars, but on the physical energy used to make things. Every citizen would receive an allotment, whether they worked or not. The certificates would expire, so no one could hoard them. Engineers, not elected officials, would run the system. This was not a pamphlet passed around a basement. At its peak in the 1930s, the movement claimed hundreds of thousands of followers across the United States and Canada. Students, professionals, engineers. They ran an energy survey of the continent from office space at Columbia University. For a moment, during the depths of the Great Depression, replacing money with a rationed abundance allowance was a mass movement. Keynes, 1930. Technocracy, 1932. The prediction that abundance would kill money is documented, named, and dated. It is 96 years old. Part 3, the cover. Now look at how the same idea is sold today. It is framed as new, as a frontier, as something only a handful of visionaries can see coming, delivered by technology no previous generation possessed. The story on the surface is discovery, a genius glimpsing a future the rest of us are too slow to grasp. The record says otherwise. The record says this is a recycled idea with a failure attached to it. Because here is the part the headline left out. Keynes was correct about the wealth and wrong about the rest. The output did multiply. The 15-hour week never arrived. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics summarized it cleanly. He was right about the large increase in wealth, but people's preferences never shifted toward leisure. The abundance came. The freedom from work did not. And technocracy? It collapsed by 1933, almost as fast as it rose. It was overtaken by a rival idea that actually shipped, Franklin Roosevelt's New Deal, which chose to fix the price system rather than abolish it. The movement to end money did not end money. It ended itself. So the honest framing is not, a visionary predicts the end of scarcity. The honest framing is the newest version of a prediction that has been made in print for nearly a century and has never once come true. That is not conspiracy. That is the citation. Part 4. The mechanism. But set the history aside. Grant the vision. Say the robots really do arrive. There is still the road to get there, and the interviewer pressed him on it. Her question was the practical one. If AI takes the jobs, what do people live off in the meantime? Do you need enormous new taxes on capital? A universal income? Massive redistribution from people like him to the people losing their work? His answer, on record, was direct. The Treasury should simply issue people checks. She caught it immediately. Where does the revenue come from? If you just print checks, she said, you get inflation. His reply was a piece of real economics used to reach a strange conclusion. Inflation, he explained, is the ratio of money to goods and services. If output explodes, 1,000% in his example, you can create a great deal of money and still avoid inflation, as long as the money grows slower than the goods. In that case, he predicted, the problem would not be inflation at all. It would be deflation, falling prices. The mechanics are correct. The assumption is doing all the work. It assumes the goods arrive first, and in staggering quantity before the checks go out. We have a documented test of what happens when that assumption is wrong. In 2020 and 2021, the United States government did almost exactly the thing he described. It issued checks. 3 rounds, $1,200, then $600, then $1,400, inside a total pandemic response of nearly $5 trillion. The checks helped. They pulled millions of people out of poverty in a single year. They also arrived before the goods did. Supply chains were tangled. Factories could not keep up. Money grew faster than output, the exact reverse of Musk's condition. And prices did not fall. Inflation climbed to 9.1% by June 2022, the highest in 4 decades. The Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis later estimated the stimulus alone added about 2.5 percentage points to it. Print the checks before the abundance shows up, and you do not get deflation. You get a receipt. America has won. Part 5. What it means today. Here is why this matters for you right now, in the world you actually live in. Suppose the factories do fill with robots. Suppose a phone, a shirt, a meal cost almost nothing to make. Something will still be scarce. It always is. The economist Tyler Cowen and others made the point after this very interview. Abundance does not erase scarcity. It moves it. Think about what stays rare, even when manufactured things are free. A house with a specific view. A seat at the best school. An hour of attention from a person everyone wants to talk to. Land in the right place. Energy. At scale. None of that multiplies just because the robots do. And whatever is scarce, something will ration it. Call it money, call it energy certificates, call it a waiting list. The rationing does not vanish. It changes its name. Then ask the harder question. Who owns the robots? If a small number of companies own the machines and the power plants that run them, the abundance does not distribute itself. Someone controls the tap. And in a world where money supposedly does not matter, control of the tap is the only thing that does. The interviewer saw the real danger, and it was not economic. It was the road. She described how a frightened, angry public might not wait patiently for paradise. They might demand nationalization, vote in governments that tax capital to the bone, try to stop the whole thing out of fear. The economy could crack on the way to the promised land, long before the promised land arrives. Even Musk seemed to feel it. Asked how he lived with the future he was describing, he said it plainly. Exhilarating and terrifying. He admitted that on any given day, even within the same day, he swings from exhilaration to terror. That is the tell. The man selling the end of money cannot decide, hour to hour, whether it is heaven or catastrophe. The people who tried this in 1932 could not deliver it either. And the one time we actually printed the checks, the bill came back marked 9%. The prediction is old. The math is honest but conditional. The road is dangerous. And the scarcity, the real, quiet, permanent scarcity, is not going anywhere. It is just waiting to be renamed. Most people slept through this. You didn't. Subscribe, because there's more.